Greetings and welcome to this session on the Gospel of John. This is session number 53. I'm Pastor Timothy Muse, lead pastor here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Alliance, Ohio. It's a joy to be with you today as we spend this time together. I want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank you for investing your time in this, your continued investment in this study and this process. As I say over and over, it is because you're willing to invest the time that this Bible study is meaningful. Right now, I kind of do my thing, and if nobody was listening, then I would just be doing my thing by myself. But you are listening, and for that I thank you. For that I celebrate. For that I'm appreciative of your willingness to continue to walk with me, to journey with me through this incredible book, through this powerful book, this powerful expression of God's love through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And we have really spent a lot of time in it. Like I said, this is session 53, which means that we've been at this for over a year. We have broke for a little while in a couple of places. I know it took some time off over Christmas and some other time. So we really have been at this a long time, and I really appreciate those who have walked with me through it. If this is your first time joining, well, welcome. I'm really glad that you're able to experience it. I certainly would encourage you to go back and check out some of the previous episodes. We've been walking with this book all the way up from the beginning, so that's definitely a long journey. So I would encourage you to go back and give a listen and experience what we've done so far in this journey. If you've been walking with us through this journey, then welcome back. Thanks for your continued investment and your continued work and your continued place in this. Like I said, we're all in this together. This is a mutual journey. So I would certainly encourage you to have your Bible open and be able to follow along if you can. If you're listening to this, while you're doing other things, driving or weeding, or maybe you're at the gym. I love to listen to knowledge and information stuff while I'm working out, podcasts and the such. So if you're doing that, that's awesome. Thanks for making me a part of your workout session. I really do appreciate that. And I would welcome. So if you can have a Bible open before you, then please do. If you can't, then that's okay too. Just listen along. And I'd be greatly appreciative if you'd be willing to share this out there, get it out there for others to hear and listen to. A lot of this is grassroots. It's the church's ministry, and it goes out through the church's Facebook page and my YouTube page. So it's the church's ministry, but we definitely want to get it out there, and this is the easiest way to do it. And the joy of social media is that you really don't have to do anything. You click a follow button or a share button, and it gets out there. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to look at anybody or talk to anybody. Just hit that share button and get it out there. The more that's shared, the more people get exposure to it. That's how social media works. So the more people that are exposed to it, the more possibility that we have that the word is going to impact someone. And that's really what we want to do. That's really what we want to see. As believers, we want to see the word impact someone else. We want to see someone's life changed for the better through the power of Christ and the Word of God. I say in my podcast, and for those of you who listen to my podcast, you probably are going to recognize this, but there really is there's no limitation on us being better. I don't get better because someone else doesn't. As a matter of fact, when someone else is better, I'm better. So when someone else is delving into and loving and dwelling in the Word, then we're better together. So this is not a limited commodity. We don't have to see this in a scarcity model that only a few people can listen to it. The more people that listen, the better. So get it out there, share it with others, so that they too have the opportunity to hear the Word of God just like we do. That would be an awesome and a beautiful gift. So get it out there, share it on your social media. As always, at the end of the session, my contact information will come up. So if you want to reach out to me, if you want to communicate with me, if you have any questions or what have you, please feel free to do that. And I'd be happy to a dialogue. If you want to talk directly, you can reach out to me through the church or through the website. If maybe I'd be able to answer a question through the next session if need be. So however it works, however however you can make it happen. But I would love the opportunity to dialogue with you. I think it'd be really, really cool to be able to communicate. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to jot them down. Feel free to get them to me, and I'll be happy to do what I can to make them known to you and make them known throughout. And maybe even others are asking the same question. So that'd be a good opportunity for all of us to kind of work together. Okay, so here we are. We're in the Gospel of John. John is the fourth book of the New Testament. The Old Testament is the story of creation all the way up until the birth of Jesus Christ. The New Testament is the birth of Jesus Christ all the way up through the crucifixion, resurrection, the creation of the new church, on to the end time, and then the recreation of the world. So we are in the Gospel of John, fourth book of the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke are the three synoptic Gospels, and then we have the Gospel of John. So we'd welcome the gospel. We'd welcome you to be into the gospel. Have the book open to you. Have the words prepared before you. That would be a really cool thing, a really important thing. So have those words open if you can and follow along. We are in the 19th chapter. Now we're at a pivotal moment here, and just kind of a brief recap. Jesus has been tried at a false trial. The chief priests and the Pharisees and the scribes and the temple police all see Jesus as a threat, so they trump up these charges that he's corrupting the people and claiming to be king and blah, 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 just so that they can drag him before Pilate. Pilate, listens to what these people say and what they have to deal with. And then Pilate goes off and he does his own power play. It's kind of fascinating watching, the two of them kind of eke out their power and deal with their own stuff. So here's Pilate doing his thing, and here's the chief priests and the Pharisees doing their thing, and together they just kind of get up in this little power play, this little power jostling here, if you will. And so Jesus has been tried. He's been convicted. I'm using air quotes. You can't see them because this is not a video, but he's been convicted of, usurping the power, rising up against the kingdom, whatever trumped up charges that are brought forward. That's what happened. So he's been convicted, and he is in the process of being executed. And where we pick up today is where is on his way to his execution. So they shouted crucify. Crucifixion, like I said before, is really, really nasty. It's not that Jesus just died in his bed one night. He was executed in a really, really terrible way. The crowd shouted out for crucifixion. Pilate wanting to keep power and maintain some control. Pilate not wanting to be a puppet for the chief priests and the scribes. The chief priests and the scribes using some ridiculous allegiance to the Roman emperor. Literally breaking the first commandment to kill God. I think that's really, really ironic that those who are charged with taking care of the call of God literally break the first commandment to crucify God. I mean, if we can't see how power and how the desire to control has just completely ruined, the leaders, that they literally, and even if they don't want to proclaim Jesus as God, okay, even if they're not willing to acknowledge Christ as the Messiah, literally they're paying allegiance to the Roman emperor. We have no king but Caesar. We have no king but the Roman emperor, which goes completely against the first commandment. You shall have no other Lord your God. I'm the Lord your God. You shall have no other God before me. And to claim allegiance to Caesar is to claim that Caesar is, in fact, again, I'll use air quotes, son of God. So the chief priests are literally committing heresy in order to use Rome to execute this itinerant preacher who winds up being what? Stay with me. Yeah, the son of God. The irony of it is it's just dripping. It's almost comical in how quickly the Pharisees are willing to abandon their faith for their power. So through the chief priests and the Pharisees using Pilate, and Pilate using the chief priests and the Pharisees, and everybody wanting to save face, Jesus is the one who is the bearer of this. Now remember, Pilate really didn't want to do this, and I would have to say that the chief priests and the Pharisees probably didn't want to do this either. I mean, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the Passion, when Jesus is brought to Annas, who is the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the chief priest, they really wanted a backroom deal. I think I think Annas wanted to craft a backroom deal, silence Jesus, call him a freak, call him a bum, call him a charlatan, whatever, and send him away. They didn't want the attention any more than Pilate wants the attention. Neither one of them wanted to go down this road. The only one who really wanted to go down this road was Jesus, because Jesus knew this is where the road had to end. And I said this before, Jesus knew this is where the road had to end. So Jesus is the one who wants to go down this road, even though nobody else really does. And so here we are, off to now the culmination of the trial, off to the culmination of this trumped up charges, which, Pilate will be, he'll be satiated. He'll maintain his authority as governor. The chief priests will be satiated that they pulled one over on the Romans. Everybody will be happy until, they're not happy. And that happens when, the grave doesn't get to win. But we're going to get to that. I mean, we all know the end of the story, so it's not like I'm revealing a plot twist here that nobody knows about. But I don't want to jump the shark, if you will. I want to stay here in this portion of the text, which is really where we are. So that's what I'll do. But anyway, nonetheless, so they lead him off to die. Okay, so we ended last time, chapter 19, verse 16a. Then he handed him over to them to be crucified. So then Pilate handed him, Jesus, over to them, the temple police and the Roman guards to be crucified, the centurions to be crucified. So that's how we ended last week, is that, the trial was done. And in this world, there was no appeal. There was no, the justice system that we know today. Nope. I mean, Jesus was tried and convicted, and the execution was going to happen immediately. Literally from the sentencing hall, from the trial to the sentence, from the sentence to the execution chamber. There was nothing else. It was going to happen, and it was going to happen now. It was going to happen immediately. And that's what we find. That's where we are when we pick up in the gospel text today, is Jesus had just been handed over to be crucified. So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, with him 2 others, one on either side, with Jesus between them. Pilate also had an inscription written and put on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this inscription because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city. It was written in Hebrew, in Latin, and in Greek. Then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but this man said, 'I am King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who will get it." This was to fulfill what the scripture says, "They divided my clothing among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." And that is what the soldiers did. Okay, so they let him off to be crucified, and that they handed him over to the soldiers. And the soldiers took Jesus. Now, it was the soldiers' job to enact this. The soldiers were the ones who participated in this action. Now, why would they do that? Well, it's part of their duty, but more importantly, it's because they actually benefited from it, as we see. They got clothing, they got stuff from the crucified victim. So here is Jesus, he's bound over to the soldiers, being led off to die by crucifixion. And though it doesn't necessarily seem like it's a terribly long walk from Pilate's chambers to the outer wall where Golgotha is, Jesus is carrying his own cross. Now, there's a lot of debate within the historical community as to exactly what part Jesus is carrying. A lot of the historical images have Jesus carrying the whole thing. The crossbar where the arms are tied onto or nailed to, and then the stanchion or the straight up bar. So, it's the image of Jesus with the cross on his shoulder, with the bar sticking down in front of him and dragging the long piece in back. So there's that image. And that is a very, stark and a very powerful image. One of the things to keep in mind is that cross probably weighed somewhere around 200 pounds, at least. So the physical reality of most people shouldering a 200-pound cross, even if they're perfectly healthy, is hard to believe for more than a little bit. I mean, yes, the image is stark and it's powerful, but it's probably not quite historically accurate. The more accurate image is that Jesus is probably carrying what would be the crossbar. Okay, what would be the bar that the arms are stretched out on? Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's still a very heavy piece. That's still a very heavy, piece of wood. It is not light by any stretch of the imagination. And though it is not a terribly long walk, it would have been an extraordinarily long walk with this bar strapped onto his shoulders, whether it was tied on or whether he had it, kind of almost like not like a potato sack, but like a potato sack on one shoulder carrying it. Again, historically, it's hard to tell because no one really wrote down what, those who were held with, those who were tried and convicted for crucifixion, how they carried the cross. Nobody really wrote that down. I mean, that wasn't necessarily written anywhere. The historical record, and remember, anybody who was crucified was a criminal. I mean, these were not good people, so no one's really going to chronicle this. It's not until later on when we start to chronicle the behaviors of other people and their lives. But at this point in time, we really don't have much in the way of information. But what we do know is that Jesus is, whether he is carrying the crossbar or the whole thing, he is shouldering a massive amount of weight, more weight than he can handle. Remember, couple of physical things about Jesus. We never get the idea that Jesus is, like some kind of bruiser, some kind of brute. I'm sure he's probably just about as physically similar to most of the other men. He's not really we don't ever have that picture of Jesus. But the other thing is he's just been flogged. I mean, he's been up all night, he's been struck, he's been beaten up, and he's been flogged. So, and a flogging is, it's not going to just stay with, with one portion of the back, and it's not like 2 or 3 licks. Usually it's 39. So we're talking, from everywhere from the neck probably all the way down to the calf. And so his entire back is beaten. I mean, this man is physically beaten. The whole point isn't just to get the victim to the cross, but to make it as painful and humiliating and excruciating as possible. That's the whole point. These people were brutal, okay? They were brutal, and they were hurtful, and they were happy to create such awful. So what we need to understand is this would have been physically very challenging. In some of the other Gospels, we hear, other stories, but this would have been physically very challenging, very, very difficult for Jesus to do, even on a good day. Save the beating. But now with the beating, this just makes it extraordinarily difficult. That's the point. The point is that this isn't supposed to be a cakewalk. If you go to Jerusalem today, if you go to the Holy Land today, it's called the Trail of Tears. It's called the walk of Christ is brutal. It really is. And when you do it, I have never done it, but I've heard many that when you do it, it's just, wow, I mean, it really brings home just the power of what takes place and what Jesus endures. So they made him carry his cross, and they went out to what is called the place of the skull, or in Hebrew, Golgotha. All right. So why is it called the place of the skull? Does it look like, is it because, it's in the shape of a skull? Is that? No. It's called the place of the skull because it's just a pile of bones. It's a bone heap. Crucifixion again, and I don't want to get into the really gruesome nitty gritty, but when someone was crucified, they were left on the cross. And they fell off the cross when their body could no longer sustain them. And that would mean that either their bones had been picked by the vultures enough to, or the flesh had decayed enough that the nails pulled away from the flesh. And then the bones just laid there and rotted. You weren't allowed to bury someone who was crucified. That was one of the parts. I mean, not only were you killed, but the indignity of rotting in this open grave. And that's why it's called the place of the skull, because it's littered with skulls and bones. This is not a good place. This is not a place that people want to be. You don't ever want to be crucified, because not only is it going to be extraordinarily excruciating, but your remains are just going to be left there to rot. They're going to be left there to rot and picked over by the vultures and eaten. That's the fate of the crucified. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my God, that's disgusting. Well, it is. It's awful. It's meant to be. And it's meant to be not only a symbol for for the crucified, but it's also meant to be a symbol for the people. That don't mess with this. Don't play here. Now, many historians want to say that the place of the skull is outside the city, and we get that a little bit later on, that Pilate, many of the Jews read this inscription, the inscription that Pilate did, and I'll jump back. About the inscription itself, but Jesus was crucified near the city. So what it was is that the crosses lined the streets leading up to the gate. So if you were a traveler coming into the city, or you were a citizen coming into the city, you would walk by this macabre illustration of a reminder that Caesar is Caesar, Caesar is in control, and you're not. Okay, so this macabre display that is there of these crosses, and multiple crosses. We see that. So in Hebrew, the place is called Golgotha. There they crucified him. So they crucified him on the place of the skull, with him two others, one on either side, with Jesus in between. Now, again, we have this very iconic vision of three crosses on a hill. Okay, and there's many people that have sung songs about that. However, again, this probably would be less accurate. It's probably more accurate to believe that there were lines of crosses. That there were probably dozens of crosses. When you walked into a Roman city, as you progressed into the city, you were going to be walking by these crosses, these crucifixion victims, as again a macabre reminder that they take law and order very seriously, and that you don't mess around, and if you do, this is what you get. The Romans wanted to make sure that everybody was very, very clear of what would happen if you started an insurrection. You would wind up on the cross. Period. End of conversation. And nobody wants to wind up on the cross. In the early days of pirates in the Caribbean and pirates around the that part of the country, if someone was convicted of piracy, they were hung over the harbor as a statement that said, look, if you come here and commit piracy, this is the punishment. And I think in a lot of ways it was desired that the death penalty would be something very similar in the American justice system, that if you commit a capital offense, you'll be punished by execution. And then others would see that, oh my God, I don't want to be executed that way. I'm not going to do those things. Lo and behold, human behavior doesn't respond that way. It really never has. All right, but Jesus is part of this long row. Again, and we need to make sure that we keep something in mind. Yes, this is the Son of God. Yes, this is the Messiah, born of the flesh. Everything that points to this is God being crucified. But we do not want to make the mistake of thinking that because we hold this person as important, that his crucifixion is any more than anybody else's. He would have been part of a row. And Jesus was crucified with two others. He was in the middle of the trifecta of crucifixion. Again, let us not think that there were just three people being crucified, because that's probably not accurate. There was probably a number of people hanging in different levels of decay or agony, and Jesus and these two others just happened to be crucified all together. All right? So his death, his crucifixion, is not meant from a historical standpoint, from a Roman standpoint, of being anything that special. It's special to us, of course, but that's because of where we stand in our faith journey. All right, so like I said, so Pilate had an inscription written on the cross. It read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Now, why is this? Well, if someone's walking along and they're seeing this guy groaning and moaning from the cross, they're going to be like, well, what did he do? I mean, if they're meant to be a deterrent, then everybody needs to know what this person did in order to deserve such a punishment. So oftentimes the criminals on a cross would have their charges inscribed above their head. So when people walked by, they knew why this person was being executed. Again, did they deserve it? Well, that doesn't matter. Is it fair? That doesn't matter. What matters is, if you're coming into this town, you better not do this. Because if you do this, this is the punishment. The punishment is death. Death by crucifixion. And crucifixion is just awful, my friends. It is just awful. There's nothing good about crucifixion. All right? Nothing at all. It's painful. It's slow. It's humiliating. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. And that's the point. I mean, again, our Lord and Savior just didn't die on his bed when he was 95. He suffered immensely for us, that we might have life. And that's kind of the pinnacle. That's kind of the basis of our faith. Okay, so Pilate had the charges written. And he had them written in Hebrew and Latin and in Greek. So Hebrew for all the Jews. Every Jew was meant to know Hebrew. Latin was the language of Rome. So any Roman that came into the city would either know how to read it or would know someone who would know how to read it. So they would know why this was a point. For the Jews, it was humiliating. Look, this is what we do to your king. We crucify your king. We destroy your king. We are in charge. That's Rome. Rome, Rome was very good at psychological terror as well as physical terror. So that's Rome. Rome said, look, this is what we do to your king. We crucify your kings. You see that? We crucify your kings. And the Romans, Roman citizens were like, well, somebody decided they were going to rise up. Well, look at what happened to them. We're not going to do that. And the same with the Greeks. The Greeks don't care about the Hebrews. The Greeks don't care about the Romans, but the Greeks do want to trade in Jerusalem. And so they want to trade in all the Roman cities. So if they're coming in, Rome wants you to know this is it. This is it. This is what happens if you claim to be king. This is what happens if you challenge the throne. So don't challenge the throne. That's the statement that's being made here. Don't challenge the throne, because if you challenge the throne, you're going to wind up hanging on a cross. And if you don't want to hang on a cross, don't challenge the throne. That's the long and the short of it. That's the long and the short of it. All right. So the chief priests, now they see this, and they're like, do not write the King of the Jews, but this man said, I am the King of the Jews. So because the statement, again, the statement that the Pharisees and the chief priests want to make is that they're still in charge of their religion, their God. And they used Pilate and the Roman Empire to get what they wanted. But they don't want people to think that the Jews are not in control. So they want to say this, they want written, this man has said I'm the king of the Jews, not this is the king of the Jews, because the statement is Rome will kill your king. If your king rises up, Rome will kill your king. Okay? If your people rise up, Rome will kill you. All right? That's the statement. That's the power play. The chief priests and the Pharisees, they didn't want that. They didn't want that oppression. And remember, the chief priests and the Pharisees and the scribes and the temple police, they wanted to use Pilate as a pawn to get what they wanted. They wanted to use Pilate as a puppet. They wanted to use his power and his authority for their own end. And they did by getting Jesus crucified. But Pilate's no dummy, and Pilate's not going to roll over power. So Pilate also turns and does the same thing by putting this up. He didn't say this man says he is the king of the Jews. He said this man is the king of the Jews. Okay? This is what we do to your king. This is what we do to your leaders. Remember that. That's the statement. So that's the statement for anybody moving forward in the empire, in the Roman Empire. This is what we do to your leaders. So your leaders better toe the line, because if they don't, we're going to kill them. We're going to kill them, just like this. Now, that's very ominous. That'd be very ominous for anybody thinking about doing any kind of uprising against the Roman Empire. You would think twice before doing that, because this is what, again, and to execute a king in that fashion, very undignified. And it usually didn't happen that way, but it happened that way this time because because they pushed Pilate. And so Pilate pushed back. And Pilate's like, no, I wrote what I wrote, man. Be quiet. That's it. It's done. You pushed me. You brought me here. I'm not going to protect you. I tried to release this guy. You didn't want it. I executed him for you. But I'm going to make sure that everybody is clear who's in charge. And it ain't you. It ain't you. So this is Pilate doing Pilate. Again, remember, I mean, these are like 4-year-olds with really, really big clubs smacking at each other. And the only one that wanted to really do this was Jesus. So Pilate uses his power, his authority, his place to make this happen, and that's really, really a cool thing for Pilate to be able to do. Cool in a power thing, not necessarily cool in a wow. That's really something to envy him for, because, I mean, he's ruthless, brutal, and a jerk. All right, so what I have written, I have written. So when the soldiers crucified him, now again, why would soldiers want this kind of duty? I mean, nobody really wants this kind of duty. What is the attraction? Well, I mean, some of the soldiers did, because they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts. They took what little Jesus had and divided amongst themselves. So there's a benefit here for them. There's a benefit to getting whatever is left on the body. So, I mean, Pilate doesn't need it. Pilate doesn't care. Pilate's not in the business of making sure that the family or the loved ones get their loved one's stuff back. Pilate doesn't care. Get away. Put him out of his misery. Pilate is not bothered in any way, shape, or form. Again, and it's really kind of important to understand. Pilate doesn't care. So the soldiers. Again, and they're probably getting paid pittance to be soldiers for Pilate and for the Roman Empire. They get what they get. And so, they get to divide his clothes up. They get to divide whatever little scrap he may have had on. And probably, something. Now, most of the stuff's probably now soaked in blood or ripped or whatever. But, I mean, they took the purple robe off of him and the crown of thorns and put his own clothes back on him before they let him out to be crucified. So he had his own clothes. So the soldiers took it and they divide him up. But when they got to his tunic, now again, one of the things we need to understand is the tunic is the undergarment. Okay, the tunic is the base layer. No man would be seen in public in his tunic, let alone without his tunic. All right. So not only is crucifixion painful and ghastly, but it's also extraordinarily humiliating. because, I mean, these people hanging on the cross are hanging there. They're either naked or maybe they're just in a little loincloth, one or the other. But that's it. And they're not wearing anything else. There's no more covering for them. So the soldiers take the clothing, but they get to the tunic. Now, the tunic was a single weave, which makes it a very precious gift. Okay, most pieces are, there's two pieces weaved and then they're sewn together. Much like what we have today. I mean, the shirt I'm wearing, it's actually 3 panels. It's got a back and then it's got the front with the buttons on it, but there's 2 sides. Again, this is a verbal, not a video, so you can't really see it. But if you think of any button-down shirt, but this was woven in one piece, top to bottom. There was no stitching. There was no seam that they could cut even to get a little bit of a cloth. So they threw lots for it. Now, lots is like dice. It's a game. It's a chance game. But basically, the deeper meaning is when you have a chance game, and this is why a lot of religions will prohibit gambling in general, is because when you have a chance game, you're asking God to choose for you. So the idea is that a chance game represents calling on God, and that's what, casting lots, that's what was believed, is that you're calling on God to make the choice for you. Make this choice for me. So we're going to cast lots. So who should win between my brother and I? Well, I don't know. So we'll cast lots, and whoever the lot falls on, like whoever wins the roll of the dice, that's the one that God chooses. That's the whole point of casting lots. So again, this is a derivative, a statement from the Old Testament about casting lots and the dividing of clothes. So we want to certainly keep in mind that everything that we're seeing in the present moment, we want to make sure that there's connection back to the past. The Pharisees and the scribes have turned their back on Jesus. They don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, blah, blah, blah. But there's all of these scriptural quotes and prophetic pieces that point to Jesus being this exact thing for the people. So Jesus, in turn, is not. There's this scriptural basis for who Jesus is as the Son of God, and so they took the tunic, seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, "Let's not tear it, but cast lots to see who will get it." This was to fulfill what the scripture says. They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothes they cast lots. And that comes from Psalm 23:18, which is what Jesus is purported to begin to say in other gospel texts from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from my cry? Etc., etc., etc. So that's what they did. So the soldiers, they cast lots for Jesus' clothing, for his tunic. To see who gets to keep it. Who is the lucky one that gets to keep Jesus' tunic? Because it is woven in one piece from top to bottom. This would have been a relatively fine garment and something that would have been prized. It could be cleaned up, soaked, and the blood gotten out and all that kind of stuff, and all the little bone chips and everything that would have been there, and it would have been cleaned up. Again, we're like, no thanks. But again, this is a very different time when things like this were hard to come by, and so that's where it's at. That's where it's at. That's the circumstance. So Jesus is now there. He's on the cross. We really don't get much about, about how he's fastened to the cross. That is not what John is concerned about. John's not concerned about how Jesus is fashioned to the cross. Notice that there's nothing in here about, the nails in his hands, or anything of that nature. That's going to come back later, but that's kind of like implied knowledge. That's implied knowledge as to how crucifixion happens. John didn't see the need to put it in because he figured everybody knows how someone's crucified. That's implied knowledge. That's the narrative. That's the storyteller's choice not to include it. It's implied knowledge. That everybody knows how crucifixion happens. That's like the implied knowledge everybody knows how a milkshake is made. Okay, or the implied knowledge of, and everybody knows how to put gas in a car or something like that. There's something very so crucifixion would have been very common in the lingo and in the narrative. So there's nothing about that. So Jesus is on the cross, stripped, clothes are distributed, and he's hanging there. It's hard to tell. I mean, historically, it's hard to tell whether he was in a loincloth or whether he was exposed. The Romans didn't care. So from a Roman perspective, having him exposed would have been heightened humiliation, heightened pain. I mean, that's very tender skin in that hot sun. It would have burned. It would have hurt. There's no reason to believe that the Romans wouldn't have, totally humiliated someone by hanging them naked from the cross. There's no reason to believe that they wouldn't. We don't want to give any kind of ethical or moral high ground for the Romans, because there's no need to. They were brutal. They were awful, and they were power hungry. So there's no reason to give them that. And really we shouldn't, because if we do, then we kind of diminish the awful that Jesus went through when he was crucified. So that's where that is. All right. So we're going to carry on a little bit further here. And before we wrap up this session. And so meanwhile, so this is verse 25, the second part of verse 25. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus was his mother, and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. Okay, so this goes to the plight of women in the Roman world. We have two assumptions here that we have to conclude. The first assumption is that Joseph is no longer in the picture. Most likely, Joseph is dead. Most likely Joseph has passed on. Two reasons. One, Joseph would be really, really near the cross. He would be paying attention. His name would crop up here somewhere. But the other is that Jesus sees his mother and sees that she will be left adrift without him. Now, even though he wasn't around, even though he wasn't living in the same land, everybody knew that Mary had a son. And because Mary had a son, Mary had a lot of freedom, if you will, a lot of movement within the society, because she had a man who was her benefactor, even if that benefactor wasn't living in the next house. Okay, very important as we understand, the role of men and the plight of women in the ancient world. One of the other things that this does kind of lead into, so it does lead us to ask, where are Mary's other children? There are those who argue that Mary never had any children. There are those who argue that Mary did have more children. We don't know. But the implication that we get, and maybe it is because Jesus is the oldest, or maybe they're off to war, maybe they've died, maybe they live in another city. We don't know. But what we do know is that Jesus is making sure that his mother is taken care of. And giving her over to John. John would be the disciple whom Jesus loved. So Jesus sees the three Marys. Mary, his mother, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So the three Marys are at the base of the cross. And Jesus sees them. Jesus has a great deal of care and compassion for his mother. So what he does is he basically assigns John to take care of her. He transfers his sonship to Mary, so that Mary has another son now, and that is John. John would be the son of Zebedee. James and John, the sons of Zebedee. John would be that son. So Jesus is transferring his sonship to John so that Mary has someone to take care of her. And the gospel says, from that time forward, then, the disciple took her into his own home. So John became Mary's benefactor. protector. John became the one that took care of Mary, because that's what Mary needed. Mary needed someone to step in on behalf of Jesus, because Jesus wasn't going to be there anymore. And even though Jesus is risen from the dead, which we'll get to, Jesus isn't residing on the earth. This isn't a residing thing. This is a risen from the dead but got bigger things to do thing. And that's what Jesus ultimately will come to. But what we're getting here is amazingly enough, in the midst of this incredible pain and this incredible hurt and this incredible brokenness, Jesus is still showing compassion and care for those who are in his circle. So even in the depths of excruciating pain and struggle and hurt, Jesus still has compassion for those who are important to him. And from the cross, he makes this beautiful and wonderful gift. It is a statement to say that my work is done, my road is done, I'm going to die. But it is also a statement to say that you still matter, and I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. And that's what he does. That's what he does for his mother and for John. John, John doesn't want to be left alone. I mean, John's going to benefit too. He's going to benefit by getting what would be a grief partner, a struggle partner. John and Mary will grieve together the loss of Jesus. They will bear each other's burdens and lift each other up in a time of pain and hurt. And Jesus knows that. I mean, Jesus knows that they're both going to need somebody else. And that's the thing about, grief. That's the thing about loss is, it's not that someone else can take it away from us or make it better, but it makes it more tolerable to journey through it with someone else. It makes it more tolerable to journey through it when there's someone else journeying with us, and we're not journeying alone. We're not journeying by ourselves. And Jesus knows this. I mean, Jesus is giving the profound example of grief counseling and grief support as he is dying from the cross. He moves the importance of attachment and the responsibility of caring for his mother from himself over to John, the disciple John, in this beautiful and wonderful moment. Now, it's very likely that John is relatively young, old enough to be a man, but not old enough to be, possibly kicking over anytime soon. So Jesus is pretty much ensured that that his mother will be taken care of, that someone will take care of his mother until she reaches her end, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing, I think, for Jesus to do in the midst of his own pain. And he could have done this, earlier. He could have done this at the Last Supper. He could have done this earlier. But, at no point up until now is there any belief that Jesus isn't going to get through this. I mean, I think it's here that the true totality of the moment really lays forth in the idea that Jesus transfers this sonship from himself over to John, that he gives Mary. And truly, I mean, notice the wording. I mean, it's not, hey, take care of her and look out for her, but this is your son. This is your mother. I mean, these words, woman, here is your son. Okay. And clearly looking at both of them. So this is not meant to, this is not a conversation between him and Mary. This is a conversation between Mary and John. So transferring this responsibility from himself to John to take care of Mary, but also then Mary becomes a grief partner for John as he goes through this. All right, so we're going to leave it here for now. We didn't really cover too much ground, but this is a really dense piece. There's a lot in this, and it's important for us to really kind of understand the depth of what is taking place here. So I'm going to end here. Like I said at the beginning, if you like this, if you're really getting something out of it, please share it out there. Use the social media platforms as they are designed and intended. Get it out there for more people to experience. Tag me in it. I'd love to see where you're listening from. That'd be pretty awesome. If you have any comments or anything or any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact will come up at the end of the session. As always, I welcome it. I look forward to it. Be well, my friends, and we will talk to you again next week.